Oftentimes, in order to properly understand current events, you need some level of historical context, and that's very true in this ongoing war between Israel and Hamas, especially this week with the Hamas refusal of extending the ceasefire and continuing to release hostages. Israel has cut off all humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip and is even threatening with cutting off electrical power as well. How do we understand that? What's that about? What does that mean that Israel is even giving humanitarian aid to its enemies? Let's explore and find out. Shalom, my friends. This is the Kiva Gersh with Israel in 5, where we give you everything Israel in 5 minutes. Please like and subscribe. And if you have any questions or want to keep the conversation going, please do so below in the comments. Just to reiterate, to make it very, very clear, we just talked about yesterday that the ceasefire that lasted 6 weeks has officially ended just a couple of days ago. Israel did want to extend the ceasefire to continue the exchange of hostages for Palestinian prisoners, including terrorists from Israeli jails, in order to get the hostages home, especially with all of the horrible stories coming out from the released hostages of the suffering and the torture and the incredibly challenging and inhumane conditions they experienced during their captivity in the Gaza Strip being held by Hamas. Hamas has refused this deal, this extension, this offer for an extension, and as a result, Israel has taken probably one of its strongest stances since the beginning of the war. It has halted all humanitarian aid going into the Gaza Strip and is now threatening to cut off electrical power to the Gaza Strip as well in order to pressure Hamas into continuing with the ceasefire and continuing to release Israeli hostages. So, what does this mean that Israel allows humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip in the first place? So, this is where we need historical context. We need to understand that when Israel left the Gaza Strip unilaterally in 2005, meaning it was not part of a peace deal, was not part of an agreement, Israel decided on its own, the government decided on its own to leave the Gaza Strip, both all of its military and all of its civilians, all of the army positions, all the army bases, and the many, many Israeli communities that existed in the Gaza Strip. All of them were removed in 2005. And the hope of the government who decided to do this would be that the Palestinians living in the Gaza Strip would use this as an opportunity to build peace with Israel and to rebuild their lives in a better way and in a better direction. That's exactly the opposite of what happened, because immediately there was a political vying for power in the Gaza Strip between Hamas and the Palestinian Authority that led to a bloody civil war in 2007, and Hamas took over fully, took full power of the Gaza Strip in 2007, and has had full power of the Gaza Strip from then up until this war. As soon as Hamas took over power, Israel, along with Egypt, put a blockade around the Gaza Strip because Hamas is a terrorist organization. It cannot be trusted to bring into the Gaza Strip whatever it wants. It cannot be assured that what they're bringing in is safe civilian needs and not weapons to fight against Israel with. So immediately upon taking power in 2007, Israel puts into place this blockade, both land, air, and sea. Now, again, it's very important to note that Egypt did the same exact thing along its border with the Gaza Strip. Many people forget that. They blame Israel, or they demonize Israel for having a blockade on the Gaza Strip, when Egypt did the same exact thing and has done the same exact thing ever since. Now, what does it mean that there's a blockade? Obviously, it doesn't mean that nothing goes in, because then all the people there would die. Right? Ever since 2007, goods have been flowing into the Gaza Strip to provide for the people living there their needs, and to help them keep living. So how does it work? What does it look like? Basically, tons and tons of trucks every single day come into the Gaza Strip from Israel via a couple certain transfer points, openings in the security fence. And all of these trucks and all of these goods are checked and screened by Israel to make sure that weapons are not being smuggled in, and certain goods are not being brought in under the guise of civilian needs, but actually being used for military purposes. Over the years, there have been actually lists put together and published of what's allowed to go into the Gaza Strip and what's not allowed to go into the Gaza Strip, according to Israeli politicians and military leaders. For example, at some point on the list, these plastic pellets were not allowed to be imported into the Gaza Strip. These are pellets that were used in a plastic bag factory. These pellets would go into a machine, and the machine would blow them up into a plastic bag. The people in Gaza wanted that so they can run their factory, and Israel said no. Why? Because these pellets can be used and have been used in the past for military purposes to make bombs against Israel. So Israel has to be very, very careful what it allows to go into the Gaza Strip. And again, goods have been flowing in not only since 2007, but since the beginning of this war. There was a call from certain segments of the Israel political spectrum to cut off all aid immediately after October 7th, after the horrible, horrible, evil attack that Israel suffered on October 7, 2023, by the hands of Hamas terrorists. That did not happen. And ever since October 7th, goods have been flowing into the Gaza Strip for civilian needs and civilian purposes. But now that we've gotten to this point where more hostages were being released, both alive and dead, and Israel wants to continue, and Hamas is refusing, now Israel is using this as a tool to pressure Hamas into continuing with the hostage release. Israel has the full backing of America, of President Trump, and that's probably the change in political leadership probably is also a big factor into why Israel is doing this right now, where with the previous administration probably would not have been allowed to, would have been pressured not to, and probably even would have been threatened not to. And if they did, they would have lost many military aid packages as a result. So this is where we stand right now. Israel is halting all humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip as a tool to pressure Hamas to continue with the hostage release, and understand, again, now we understand the historical context of this, right? Of why Israel was even in control of humanitarian aid, or why Israel was even bringing humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip all of these years, if it was being ruled by a terrorist organization, Hamas, one of Israel's biggest enemies today. So I hope that's more understandable and more clear to you, and helps you understand what's going on right now in the current stage of this ongoing war between Israel and Hamas. All the best, my friends, and have a good day.